If you were kidnapped and forced to compete in a death game tournament where you could win a YouTube channel with over 115 million subscribers, what would you do? Nobody is coming to rescue you, so I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the YouTuber death game in the OctoGames. These contestants are going to regret coming here. They've all been invited to compete in a tournament organized by a famous YouTuber named JaxPro and are excited to be a part of his new video, but something's strange. The studio they're in is far from any nearby towns, and no one was told what the prize is. Suddenly, the YouTuber appears on screen, welcoming them to the OctoGames, where they will compete in 8 games, and only 8 people can move on to the next round. It's like Squid Game at home, but there's a catch. He will retire after the tournament, but whoever wins will inherit JaxPro's entire YouTube channel with full access to his brand and 115 million followers. The players can't believe what they're hearing and are determined to win as they're introduced to the first challenge. They'll be playing a game of Simon Says, where the group must follow every command that begins with the phrase Simon Says. But if they obey a command that doesn't have that phrase, then they'll be eliminated. Wishing them luck, the YouTuber stops streaming, and that's when a man in a fox mask waves at them. Amused, the contestants think it's hilarious, but they have no idea this will turn into a death trap. Starting the game, this staff member tells the players Simon Says to clap once. They all obey as he continues giving instructions, but then he pulls a trick. The guard orders them to put their hands on their heads without mentioning Simon Says, and this guy messes up. He's the first person to be eliminated and walks away from the group frustrated he lost. The man approaches the fox and shakes his hand, but suddenly the guy pulls out a sledgehammer. He knocks the contestant to the ground, and the others are horrified as his face gets smashed in, making that one victim down with 14 more to go. It's terrifying, and the guard warns them that anyone who tries to escape will be eliminated, but this woman doesn't care. She tries to run for the exit, but gets shot to death, making that 2 victims down with 13 more to go. The game makers have a sniper set up to punish anyone who disobeys, and soon they'll go through 7 more deadly children's games to finally escape. Suddenly, the evil Mr. Beast reappears on the TV, reminding them that he warned the players not to disobey rules. But this woman points out they were never told this was a death game. That's when the sniper shoots her, and that makes 3 victims down with 12 more to go. Continuing the game, the guard has the players stand on 1 foot, but they're terrified of the consequences. None of them want to die, and this when Maxine realizes the guy next to her is leaning against the wall. He's cheating and hasn't been punished. But before they can do anything, this man loses his balance, placing his foot to the ground. The guards have no mercy and he's shot to death, making that 4 victims down with 11 more to go. Okay, this is insane. Imagine getting invited by the biggest YouTuber in the world, who's famous for giving away huge cash prizes, only to discover that he's actually a complete psychopath that treats your death like it's nothing. What makes it even more horrifying is that only the winner will be allowed to live, and that means we need to make sure we beat every single game, or else we're going to die. The good news is, we actually have a real shot at winning the whole thing. These other contestants are all influencers who are just as unprepared as us. If I were this woman, CARRIE here, I would already start eyeing up the competition and decide who I want to help into the next stage and who needs to go, because they are huge threats. Seeing as Simon Says to the first challenge, it is likely that other games will be based on classic childhood games. This means agility is a huge advantage here, and we have a far better shot if all the young and fit people were eliminated right now. I would pretend to be helpful and yell to those who look the strongest that it is easier to concentrate on balance if they close their eyes to eliminate distraction. In truth, it is quite the opposite. Having vision helps us maintain balance because our eyes continually judge where our bodies are relative to the horizon and the ground. When someone closes their eyes, this visual information is lost to them, and it becomes far more of a chore to stay upright. It is sad to admit, but being wannabe influencers means that our competitors are likely shallow, susceptible to flattery, and lack a lot of real-world skills. This makes it quite likely that they will fall for our ruse. Looking beyond the first game at the rest of the competition, we will also need a strategy to gain a long-term advantage. From the enforcers' ridiculous costumes and the fact that there are cameras and armed guards watching everyone, not to mention having let Steven here cheat. This tells us that the Game Master prioritizes entertainment above all else. Like any reality TV show, they will want their most entertaining characters to go far to keep things interesting throughout the whole competition. It seems like Steven here is already the Game Master's pet villain, and they'll turn a blind eye to his cheating as long as he continues to deliver thrilling moments with his cutthroat instincts. CARRIE here should immediately start trash-talking him, playing up a sassy but righteous character who is disgusted by Steven. Since she is already a pretty face, positioning herself as the nemesis of the main villain will only cement herself within the Game Master's eyes as the hero he'd like his followers to see win the OctoGames. themselves. Next, the guard orders them to hold their breath while standing on a single foot, but they're getting tired and the situation is getting tense. It's too much for some of them to take, and this girl loses her balance. The sniper shoots her as punishment, and she falls to the ground dead. That's when this man stops holding his breath, and he's the next person to get shot. But then another woman tries to run away. The fox quickly catches up to her and brutally whacks her in the face, making that 7 victims down with 8 more to go. Appearing back on the screen, Discount Jacksepticeye here announces that the first game is over and demands they approach the camera to introduce themselves to the audience, or else they'll be shot. It's clear they won't be going home anytime soon, and they reluctantly follow the game master's instructions, but only one of these players will make it out alive. The guards take them to the barracks where they change into matching uniforms and have a chance to relax after everything they've witnessed. Searching his pants, this old man Walter finds some money and quickly hides it in his pocket, just as a guard demands he hand over his old clothes. Walter is already thinking ahead to win, but he'll soon discover that a fistful of dollars can't solve everything. In another part of the room, CARRIE here is still coming to terms that they're trapped in a death game when she hears someone crying. She walks over to another player and comforts her, suggesting all 3 of them should work together. It's their best chance to survive, but this woman Ruth interrupts. She mocks them for thinking a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity wouldn't be brutal, and sarcastically wishes them good luck. In another part of the room, the old man approaches Steven here and suggests they work together, insisting they can easily outsmart the others. Pointing out the group of women, he promises the player he can trick them to lower their guard. Steven isn't sure he believes him, but decides to partner with the guy knowing their safety in numbers. Later, the group is taken to the second game where Jaxpro reveals they will be playing hopscotch and breaks down the rules. Each contestant draws a number to decide in what order they'll hop across the tiles, but there's a catch. When the board turns red, a sound will play, and they need to stop until it becomes green. If they don't, they'll be executed, and the challenge ends when someone gets eliminated. AJ here's the first to go, and he easily makes his way across the board and is able to pass on to the third game, avoiding execution. The next person to go is Jess, and she begins to do the challenge, but when the lights turn red, the old man notices his partner is whistling. It's strange, but soon he'll discover Steven knows how to beat this death game. The woman skips across the board and reaches the other side. That's when the old man approaches CARRIE and asks if they can trade numbers. He's clearly up to something, but with no idea what he's planning, she accepts his offer. The next player is called to the front, and she begins to hop across the board, but suddenly the lights turn red. She struggles to keep her balance, and as the others wait to see what happens, Steven here whistles. He replicated the sound of the lights changing, and the woman hops to the next step before it's safe. She's just made her biggest mistake and looks back to see the fox approach her before knocking the woman to the ground. The others are horrified as he beats the woman, and CARRIE begs him to stop, insisting it's too sadistic. Furious, the executioner walks up to the woman and swings his crowbar straight into her leg. It's a brutal response, and the man continues to punish the eliminated player, jamming his weapon straight into her body. That makes 8 victims down, with 7 more to go. Okay, CARRIE's leg will be sore for a while, but this is actually a huge win for her. Not only has she survived the second game, but how it played out just gave her all the information she needs to beat the others and survive. The first thing she should have noticed is that the guards did nothing when Steven tricked the woman by whistling, sending her to her death. This means that unless Jaxpro says an action is against the rules, anything goes. Since CARRIE here can't compete with a ruthless player like Steven, or a fitness expert like Jess in physical challenge, her best shot would be to play dirty to eliminate her toughest competition. If I were in CARRIE's shoes, I'd use this downtime at the barracks to sabotage the others, and Walter here would be the perfect guinea pig to test how far we can bend the rules. This old man is already being shady and playing both sides. If I instruct him to sabotage Steven while he's resting at the barracks, he can either do it and prove his loyalty, or refuse and expose himself as a traitor. I would ask Walter to go through the first aid supplies and find something that can hinder Steven in the next game to hopefully knock him out of the competition. Since Steven likes to meditate with his eyes closed, this gives Walter the chance to slip laxatives into his drink, or put needles in his shoes if he can get a hold of them. While we have no idea if the fox will allow this, we have already covered ourselves by having Walter do the dirty work to prove himself. If the fox snaps and kills Walter, we would only have lost someone who can't be trusted in the first place. There are also 7 of us and 6 more games to play, telling us that the game master can only afford to lose 1 person per game if he wants to fulfill his vision of having a full OctoGames with 8 rounds. If CARRIE had looked back at how the game master ran the hopscotch game, she would realize that not everyone has to complete each challenge. After this woman failed and was killed, everyone else advanced automatically, even the contestants who did not complete the hopscotch. Knowing this, the best strategy for upcoming games would be to go last whenever possible by heading straight to the back of the queue or volunteering to hang back. This gives all the others a chance to fail at the games before we even have to waste any energy competing. We have no idea if any of the other contestants are even trustworthy, and these two men have already proven to be up to no good. It is very likely that the challenge or interference from conniving competitors will cause contestants to fail before the last person in line even needs to participate. Later, they return back to the barracks, and Maxine warns her friend never to argue with a staff member when the old man approaches her. Walter reveals that he switched numbers with CARRIE to make Steven think he was gaining their trust in order to betray them later. In truth, the old man actually wants their help to eliminate Steven, and the women decide to team up, hoping that this won't be a mistake. In another part of the room, Ruth tries to seduce Steven while he's meditating, and the man walks away as she tries to convince him to work together. It's clear she's not his type, and he threatens to hit her if she doesn't stop, but the woman taunts him, thinking he wouldn't dare. Suddenly, he proves her wrong and smacks her to the ground before warning the others to leave him alone. Later, AJ helps treat her bloodied nose, and Ruth walks away as he introduces himself to the women. It's clear he's got a good heart, but that's when the guards announce Game 3 will begin shortly. That takes the contestants by surprise, and the man suggests they work together to find a way out of here. The contestants are blindfolded and brought into the middle of the woods. Appearing on a screen, the YouTuber tells them to take their blindfolds off and welcomes them to the next game called the Obstacle Course. Unlike the others, this challenge is completely optional. If a player makes it to the end in under a minute, then they get to go home but forfeit the prize. Desperate to escape, Jester volunteers to go first and walks towards the inflatable obstacle course. As soon as the timer starts, the woman rushes inside and climbs up a wall, but is horrified that someone else is already here. The fox crawls out of the tunnel, and he's going to do whatever it takes to stop her from reaching the end. Jess can't turn back now and runs through the course with the executioner chasing after her. He manages to grab a hold of the woman and crawls his way over, but just as he's about to strangle her, Jess kicks him between the legs. Breaking out of his grip, the player sprints through the remainder of the course and makes it to the end. Relieved, the others congratulate her, but suddenly she's shot dead. The sniper explains she went over the time limit and has been punished for failing. That makes 9 victims down, with 6 more to go. The group is terrified, but CARRIE volunteers to go next, and even though her friend insists that it's a bad idea, she still heads over to the inflatable obstacle course. The woman knows what's at stake, but just as the guard is about to start the timer, she changes her mind. Breaking down into tears, CARRIE realizes that there's more to gain by winning and returns back in line. That's when Jax Pro appears on screen, announcing that the challenge is over and they'll soon be playing Game 4. That night, the contestants are all resting when AJ wakes up and sneaks over to CARRIE's sleeping bag. He tells her they need to find a way to escape right now, but she points out the fox is keeping watch. The player reveals that he hasn't moved in 2 hours, so he's most likely asleep, but the woman knows something is wrong and insists AJ make sure he's not awake. Reluctantly, the player walks over to the man and waves a hand in front of his eyes. The guard has no reaction, so the player tries taking the hammer, but suddenly the fox stops him. He's been awake this whole time, and AJ quickly returns back to his sleeping bag knowing that they're trapped here. Okay, these cowards may not realize it, but they have let a huge opportunity slip through their fingers. As we have already figured out earlier, the Game Master can only afford to kill off 1 contestant per game. Jess here has already been killed at the obstacle course game, meaning the guards will be reluctant to fail anyone else during this round. On top of that, the contestant should have looked more closely at Fox's costume. The eye holes are tiny and flanked by the mask's wide cheeks. This means that his vision is extremely limited. The entire costume is also a onesie, which extends over his feet, limiting his range of movement and speed. To make things worse for him, he is carrying a heavy wrench and has already been through a full round of chasing Jess. It only makes sense that the fox is now exhausted, overheated, and can barely breathe in his costume under the hot sun. With all these factors combined, it becomes a very worthwhile risk to attempt the obstacle course to win our freedom, because it will be far easier to outrun this tired furry than to face the others and win 5 more games. Separately, that night also represents another unfortunate missed opportunity where the group failed to escape despite the chance to do so. The 2 guards with guns aren't in the room at night, and there aren't any cameras watching them. They will only have to worry about the fox, who is largely limited in movement by his costume. This means even if Steven can't be trusted, that's 5 of them against just the fox. This is the best time to strike before their numbers dwindle further after more games. From the way the fox is standing, at least 1 sleeping bag is in his blind spot completely behind him. If the player from that sleeping bag sneaks up from behind and grabs his sledgehammer, he will not have the mobility or vision to react in time. Once disarmed, the others can charge in to subdue him. If the contestants stuff the fox's unconscious body into one of the empty sleeping bags, AJ here can slip on the costume and stand in the middle of the room as if nothing has happened. Waiting for a few hours, the guards will return and unlock the door the next morning, and the contestants will be well prepared for an ambush. If Ruth and Maxine here pretend to get into a scuffle, the guards will approach them to threaten the women into submission. During this distraction, AJ can knock them out from behind with the sledgehammer. The group can then search their pockets for any keys or remote controls of the facility. This leaves the contestants with an open door, room keys, and 2 rifles for more than enough resources to make a solid attempt to escape. The next morning, the group is taken into this room where the YouTuber reveals they will be playing musical chairs and breaks down the rules. The players must walk in a circle while a song plays, and as soon as it stops, they must sit down on a chair. The first person who doesn't will be eliminated, and the others will continue playing until a winner can be decided. But there's one more thing they need to know. Whoever wins will be given $1 million, and with that, they take their positions. The game begins as music starts playing and the group circles around the chairs, ready to sit down as soon as possible. Suddenly, the song stops and they all rush for one of the seats. AJ gets into a fight with Ruth over a chair, but she manages to push him off. Terrified, he tries going for the seat again, but the woman pokes him in the eyes and the fox enters the room. He walks over to the man and quickly drags him out of the arena. It's terrifying, but with him removed from the game, the guard orders everyone else to stand up. After a chair is removed, the group starts to play again and the group goes for another round. This time, when the music stops, Walter almost gets into a fight for a seat but gives it up, letting himself be eliminated for Carrie's sake. With the old man escorted out of the arena and another chair removed, the others continue playing. In the next round, Maxine gets pushed off a seat and is the next person to be removed from the game. There are only 2 seats left now, and the contestants continue playing, but this time, Carrie misses her chance to sit down. The fox escorts her out of the arena and takes her to a room where all the other losers have been waiting. None of them have been hurt, but that's when Jax Pro appears on the TV, announcing that in this final round, whoever loses will be executed. In the other room, the last remaining players circle the chair, and when the music stops, the woman sits down first, but suddenly Steven strangles her from behind. The others are horrified to watch him start brutally beating her up, and Walter uses this opportunity to convince them they need to stop Steven before it's too late. They're in total agreement to get the man eliminated, and as soon as he enters the room, he already knows what they're planning. Meanwhile, Ruth wakes up and sees Jax Pro standing in front of her. Confused, she asks what's going on, and the man reveals he wants her to make the game more interesting. The man proposes she act as a guard for the rest of the tournament and interfere with the players, but she doesn't trust him. Suspicious, Ruth asks if he's going to kill her, but he promises to set her free after the competition and pay her $2 million. It's an offer she happily accepts, and the woman can't wait to get her revenge. Back at the barracks, Walter meets up with Steven and tells him that the others think he's on their side, but the man doesn't believe him. Grabbing the old man, he makes it clear that he'll murder Walter if he tries to betray him, and walks away. The others watch their interaction, confused about whether they can trust the old man, and Carrie breaks down. She can't handle knowing that they're all going to die, and regrets joining the competition. That's when a new guard enters the room and orders them to put on their blindfolds to prepare for the next game. The others don't recognize her, and while they're obeying her orders, the old man hands over some money to the fox. Walter has made a deal with him to help out during the game, but this deal won't protect him forever. Okay, this is terrifying. Any of us could have been viciously murdered over something as silly as musical chairs. If I were in Carrie's shoes, you can guarantee that I would not be walking normally at such a leisurely pace. I am actually already in the best possible spot here between AJ and Maxine, probably the 2 least competitive contestants left in the game. To further improve my odds, I would keep both arms stretched on either side of me so they stay away, and have as much space to work with as possible. Between the 2, Maxine is less physically strong and more likely to give in to me. Hence, I would also stick closer to Maxine than AJ, in case I need to overpower the nearest person for a chair when the music stops. Instead of walking at an even pace, I would always wait for the person in front of me to walk beyond the next chair, then burst forward before slowing down again and blocking the chair from the person behind me with my body while I wait for the person in front to move beyond the next chair. If everyone else walks normally, this technique should easily win us the game of musical chairs, even if we are not the heaviest or strongest person playing. This is where all contestants should drop their delusions that there's any prize worth winning here. Jax Pro has seemingly changed the rules mid-game during the musical chairs. Instead of executing AJ, who lost, he claims to have killed Ruth, who made it to the final 2. This man is clearly doing everything for his own entertainment and doesn't honor the integrity of the competition. There is nothing guaranteeing that this cheating PewDiePie here will follow through on his promise to retire and leave his channel to the winner. We should use this logic to flip Steven to our side. Playing onto his bloodlust, we could rile Steven up against Jax Pro by pointing out how AJ was spared for no reason, even though Steven beat him in musical chairs, and that the Game Master will screw him out of any winnings in the same way. We should lay it out for Steven that even if he wins, the Game Master plans to post the OctoGames footage showing real deaths to his channel. This breaks the platform's terms of service in the worst way possible, and the entire channel will be shut down immediately, even if the winner does get to inherit it. Everyone is far better off working together to escape than milking the fame of having survived these snuff games. If we promise to hype Steven up as the hero who rallied everyone to escape once we are out, this heroic perception would boost his career as a motivational speaker far more than being branded the ruthless and criminal survivor who stabbed everyone in the back to win. Later, the players are taken to a house, and while AJ starts making plans to escape with the others, Steven realizes that the new guard is Ruth. Appearing on screen, the Game Master explains the next challenge is hide and seek. The players have 1 minute to find a place to hide, and after that, the fox will hunt them down. The first person to be found will be eliminated, and the game ends. With that explained, the guard begins counting down from 60 seconds, and the group quickly spreads throughout the building. AJ cramps himself in a crack behind a bed, while the old man takes cover in a closet. In the other rooms, Carrie squeezes herself behind a wicker chair, but her friend can't find a good spot, and to make matters worse, they're running out of time. She decides to look for another place to hide, but has no idea this will be her biggest mistake. Meanwhile, Steven here struggles to find somewhere he won't get caught, but there aren't many places left. He's forced to duck behind a chair, and the fox is only a few feet away, waiting for the chance to hunt them down. In the bedroom, Maxine considers squeezing herself into the crack behind the bed, but Walter insists she join him before time runs out. With no better options, she rushes into the closet, thanking the old man for helping her, and the fox begins the hunt. Picking up a knife, he searches for the players and enters the room that Carrie is hiding in, checking each piece of furniture. Noticing the wicker chair in the corner, he approaches the hiding spot, but at the same time, Steven bumps a table. The sound of the lamp jiggling alerts the fox, and he quickly rushes out to find whoever made the noise, but he never notices the man behind the chair. With the killer no longer in the room, Carrie stands up and takes the opportunity to try escaping through the window. Unlocking it, she begins to climb out of the building when a guard runs in with a gun and he demands she stop, but doesn't shoot her. In the living room, Steven decides to make a break for it and runs off through the house. Heading to the bedroom, he quickly enters the closet and hides with the others. They can hear the fox walk in, searching for the contestants, and Steven signals at the old man to betray Maxine. Knowing he'll be killed if he doesn't, Walter suddenly grabs the woman and shoves her out of the closet. The men have just sacrificed her as bait, and the killer has just spotted the woman. Putting down his knife, he picks her up and throws the player onto the bed. Maxine quickly calls out to her friend for help, and realizing she's in danger, Carrie runs out of the room. She's determined to rescue the woman, but it's too late. The player arrives to see her friend get murdered, and there's nothing she can do to bring her back. That makes 10 victims down with 5 more to go. That's when Walter exits the closet, and Carrie demands to know how her friend was murdered. The old man lies, saying that Steven threw the woman out, and the guy takes the blame. He walks away to the other room where he confronts the new guard and reveals he knows she's Ruth, but the woman doesn't care. She promises to make him lose and will do whatever it takes to get revenge. Okay, this wasn't a hide-and-seek game at all, but rather a who can get another player killed fastest game. Seeing how tiny the house is, it has 0 good places to hide, with only unlocked doors and easily moved furniture to squeeze behind. It is basically a game of chance if you let it run as intended. Once the game starts, the fox will enter a room at random and almost instantly find anyone unlucky enough to be in that room. Our best shot at survival here is to take control and make sure another contestant is in plain sight within the starting room the moment the fox opens his eyes. If I were Carrie, I would recognize how important it is that I keep myself, Maxine, and AJ alive through this game. If my alliance of 3 makes it to the next round, we are pretty much guaranteed to advance again to the semifinals because we can just gang up on the other contestant in the next game. I would not even bother trying to camouflage myself behind a wicker chair. The moment the game master starts the countdown, I would grab one of these candlesticks and knock Steven out cold. The rest of us can then sneak into any other room in the house. As long as Steven stays unconscious in the main room for the 60-second countdown, he will be the first person the fox spots and kills once he begins seeking. Even if Steven's thick skull somehow keeps him conscious and foils this plan, Carrie still has another ace up her sleeve she can play. This male guard isn't as bloodthirsty as Ruth or the Game Master. He has already shown that he likes Carrie and is not willing to kill her. While the guard may not have the guts to take as large a step as allowing Carrie to escape entirely, he is still likely to help her in ways that are within the spirit of the competition. In selecting hide and seek for this round, the Game Master is looking to recreate the thrill of this childhood game. This thrill most strongly emerges when contestants think outside the box and get creative or bold in their hiding places. Here, Carrie can track the guard as he patrols the house and then approach him asking to trade costumes. He will be able to give her the hood and mask guilt-free because this creative ruse and Carrie hiding in plain sight is the most entertaining outcome for a game of hide and seek, which will impress his boss. The guard can then leave this open window and stay outside till this round is over. Posing as a guard is a far better hiding spot than any of the places around the house, ensuring that someone else is spotted before Carrie and that she makes it at least one more round. Returning back to the barracks, Steven thanks the old man for saving their lives in the last game, but Walter is scared. He asks what's going to happen when they're the last players alive, and the man makes it clear they'll probably have to fight to the death. It's troubling news, and the old man knows his only hope is if the fox agrees to help him out. In another part of the room, AJ tries to comfort Carrie and reminds the woman that they might find more opportunities to escape in later games, but she's terrified. She could die any time now and walks away, breaking down in tears. Annoyed, Steven tells her to stop whining, and the woman confronts him, furious that he doesn't feel guilty for killing people. But the man reminds her this is a death game. Only one person can leave this place alive, and he's determined to be the winner. Later, they're escorted outside to compete in the next game, and the players consider taking the opportunity to attack the guards. They might actually be able to escape, but Steven here threatens to attack them if they try. Shocked, the woman asks him why he would do that, and he tells her he wants to win the tournament just so he can beat them. That's when the Game Master introduces them to Game 6 and explains they will play tetherball. All they need to do is hit the ball until it wraps itself all the way around the pole, but there's a catch. They will have 3 one-on-one matches, and the losers will play against each other in the final round to determine who lives. With that, the Fox picks up a spiked metal ball, and the contestants realize they'll need to shred their hands open just to compete. The old man and AJ are the first victims chosen to play, but the younger man is furious. He knows that Walter lied about pushing the woman out of the closet, and he tries to defend himself when suddenly the other player hits the ball, taking him by surprise. The others cheer them on as they hit the ball around the pole, but in the end, the boomer is too slow, and he loses the first match. That makes AJ the victor, and the next 2 players are about to play, but as soon as Steven gets into position, he confirms the old man killed Maxine. He's destroyed any chance the others will trust him, but Carrie then notices something weird. AJ shakes his head, showing his bloodied hand, and the woman realizes it's a warning. Her opponent smashes the ball as hard as he can, and it goes flying around the pole, but the woman refuses to block it. For the entire match, she stands back and lets him beat her. It seems like Carrie has given up, but then she explains her strategy. By losing like this, she'll have an advantage playing against the old man in the next round, and now she's guaranteed to beat him. Jax Pro congratulates the girl for her genius idea, and the losers step up for the final match. Determined to win, Carrie whacks the ball as hard as possible, and the old man can't compete. She easily beats him within seconds, making her the winner, and Walter begs the guards to spare his life, but it's useless. He's shot in the stomach and falls to the ground in agony. Seizing the opportunity, the Fox starts beating him, and Walter tries to stop him. He manages to remove the executioner's mask, revealing his true face to the players, before the murderer picks up his sledgehammer. Walter reminds him they had a deal, but the Fox doesn't care, and the others are horrified as he brutally smashes Walter's face in, making that 11 victims down, with 4 more to go. Okay, this was brilliant. On top of giving herself a physical advantage going into the round against Walter, she also psyched him out by pointing out what she had done. This caused him to become panicked and distracted, complaining about the situation. Not only has Carrie advanced, but Maxine has also finally been avenged. This old man who threw Maxine under the bus was no match for Carrie and AJ's quick thinking. While she has done well to stay 1 step ahead in tetherball, Carrie could have been even more ambitious and stayed 2 steps ahead by weakening Steven on top of eliminating Walter. Instead of obviously not moving during her round against Steven, she should have played to his competitive nature and taunted him. If the younger man believed she was actually trying to win against him, it would have compelled him to go all out to crush her. If Carrie can goad him to making unnecessary hits on the spiked wall, or slamming his hands into it with excessive force, the man might have actually been more injured by the game from his competitive drive. Any injury to Steven sets Carrie and AJ up for success in their final 2 games, as the man is clearly the biggest threat to win the entire thing. The young woman could also have taken more defensive measures during both her rounds. As soon as the guard brought out the spiked ball, she should have looked for something to cushion her hand against its unforgiving surface. She could have torn off a portion of her shirt and wrapped both hands in it. Since Carrie's round happened after AJ and Walter already faced off, they would have already gotten hurt by the game and not be able to copy her idea. This leaves her as the only one with her hands intact going to games 7 and 8. It might seem ruthless to leave her friend AJ out of the loop, but only one of them can win, and things are quickly getting down to the wire here. In addition, this game wasn't entirely fair. The contestants could have noticed that the slope they were playing on was on a slight incline, with one side downhill from the other. The loop which the spiked tetherball is fastened to is on the downhill side of the slope. Both these factors make things a little easier for the contestant on the uphill side of the tetherball, as their opponent will be hitting the ball against gravity and the hoop obstacle. Seeing this, Carrie should have taken her spot at the better side at the start of her rounds to give herself the absolute best shot at beating her opponents. The players return to the barracks, and the teammates discuss what's going to happen in the next game. They both know it's impossible for everyone to make it out alive, and Carrie points out they'll probably have to fight each other. No matter what happens, they're going to lose a friend, and the players spend the rest of the break terrified of what's going to happen. That night, the contestants are tied to chairs and electrical wires are attached to their heads. Entering the room, the guards take off their blindfolds, and Jaxbro introduces them to their next game, Hangman. Each contestant will take turns guessing a phrase that will appear on screen, but for every letter they get wrong, they'll receive an electric shock that will get even more dangerous over time. And if they can figure out what the phrase is, then they'll be untied from the chair. The game ends when somebody stops breathing. They have 2 seconds to make a guess, and with that the challenge begins, displaying a 4-word phrase on screen. Steven here is told to go first, but he doesn't react in time and gets a little jolt. Going next, Carrie answers T and reveals it occurs 3 times. When AJ answers L, it appears in the second word, and Steven tries the letter F, but that was wrong. The fox increases the voltage and painfully shocks him. The other 2 players start guessing vowels, revealing more of the words, and then move on to calling out consonants, but that's when they start getting more answers wrong. The electrical shocks for each player have gotten so intense that Steven can barely focus and is too slow to answer. The guard is about to order the fox to shock him as punishment, but the executioner realizes he's about to figure out the phrase. Looking at the screen, Steven tells him that the phrase is Maxine lost the OctoGames and finds out he was right. With that, Steven gets to pass on to the final game, and the guard unties him from the chair, making him the first person to be set free. That's when the next phrase appears on screen, and CARRIE is terrified of dying, but AJ reassures his teammates that he knows how they'll escape from the tournament. Going first, the woman guesses A and discovers that it appears twice in the phrase, but when it's AJ's turn to guess, he remains silent. The fox shocks him, and the woman takes her turn to guess, but when it goes back to her teammate, he continues to remain silent. She realizes he's letting her win and refuses to make a sound even as he's finally electrocuted. CARRIE has won at the cost of her friend's life, and now she'll be moving on to the final game. That makes 12 victims down, with 3 more to go. That night, the players return to the barracks, and Steven approaches the woman, wishing her luck. But she has had enough. CARRIE tells him he doesn't deserve to win after cheating the entire tournament, and slaps him across the face. Acting quickly, the man suddenly grabs her and points out being cold-blooded is the only way to win in a death game. Pushing her away, he promises she'll die tomorrow, while the woman breaks down in tears. Okay, playing nice here was a huge mistake, and losing sight of the cutthroat nature of the games, AJ paid the ultimate price and has left CARRIE in a nearly hopeless situation. What they should have done in the Hangman game is shamelessly kick Steven while he was down. Looking at the nature of the game, guessing letters correctly and avoiding the electric shocks are an advantage, but the only way to advance is to solve the entire phrase. This means that Steven could suddenly solve the phrase and win the whole thing even after missing multiple letters, which is exactly what happened. In fact, CARRIE and AJ guessing so many correct letters without solving the phrase only helped their rival by giving him more information. During Steven's rounds, CARRIE and AJ should not have given him a moment's silence to gather his thoughts. Since only Steven's guesses count during his turn, the other two should have constantly been shouting irrelevant letters and phrases. In the same way yelling random numbers would distract someone trying to keep count. This racket would cause Steven to lose track of what letters have been called and what phrases might be relevant to the puzzle. If I were in CARRIE's position, I would even take it a step further. Since we are all sitting in a row with me right beside Steven, his chair is within my reach. Each time I get shocked by the fox, I would exaggerate my body's spasms. The aim here is to rock side to side on my chair so much that I nudge Steven's chair to the left each time and put it so far out of alignment that he can no longer see the screen clearly. This leaves him at a huge disadvantage, and if he pauses to complain about it, it will only waste valuable time during his turn and put him even further behind. To set herself up to win the final game, CARRIE should have taken a page out of Steven's book and stoop as low as he is willing to. Since the tournament is about to end, she has every reason to do anything that would give her an advantage, like asking the guards for help. It might be a long shot, but earlier, CARRIE and the others were suspicious of the new guard's identity. It was clear she's a replacement, and if the player had approached her to try making a deal, there's a chance that CARRIE might have figured out it was Ruth. Then, as they're heading back to the barracks, she could have signaled to Ruth that she's willing to work together to make sure Steven dies in the last challenge. If she reminds Ruth of how Steven essentially sent her to her death during the musical chairs game, the woman might be willing to tell her what the final game will be or how she can win. The male guard has also spared CARRIE during hide and seek, and has shown eagerness for Steven to lose during Hangman. If she approaches him while he is tidying up the barracks and simply says help me, he might become another ally she has in her pocket going into the next round. Depending on what the game is, having one or both guards on her side to possibly rig the odds in her favor can mean the difference between life and death for CARRIE. The next morning, the players are taken out into the woods, and the game master reminds them the winner of this challenge will inherit his YouTube channel. The footage from the OctoGames will be uploaded so his fans can watch the tournament, but he'll go into hiding, and the police will never find him. With that, Jax Pro reveals that they will play Capture the Flag, where they must hold onto the flag for 3 seconds, and if they succeed, they'll win, but there's a catch. If a player knocks out or kills their opponent, they will be eliminated, and the only advice he has is to play smart. On the count of 5, the players sprint toward the flag as fast as they can, and manage to grab a hold of it at the same time. They're both determined to win, but the man is too strong and shoves the woman away. CARRIE falls to the ground, horrified that she's going to die, but then she notices a black flag in the distance. She realizes the red flag is a trick and quickly runs to the woods just as the man figures out he's made a huge mistake. CARRIE picks up the real flag out of the ground and turns around to see her opponent get shot to death. She's the only player left alive, and one of the guards suddenly rushes over to her, knocking the woman out as Jax Pro congratulates her for beating the OctoGames. That makes 13 victims down and CARRIE the winner. Later, the woman wakes up inside of a house and has no idea how she got here, but that's when she spots something on the table. It's Jax Pro's mask next to a note with the login credentials for his entire YouTube empire. He made good on his promise, but then CARRIE hears someone coming down the stairs. It's one of the guards, and he explains that the tournament footage has been uploaded, so the police have started investigating the player's murders. Handing over a phone, he reassures her she's safe now and walks away. But before he can leave, she asks him to take off his mask. He gives in to her request, revealing his face, and wishes CARRIE luck in the future. She's got no idea who he is, and the man takes the opportunity to walk out of the house, leaving her alone so she can call the cops. 3 months later, CARRIE has found success with her newfound fame as the OctoGames winner and is talking with her friend when he tells her to watch a video he sent. Checking it out, the woman sees Jax Pro doing a vlog with Ruth, and they're dating. She's horrified he's still out there, but she's learned an important lesson. Sometimes, letting your friends die is worth it. But what do you think? How would you beat OctoGames? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. Until next time, have a damn good day.